Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here today, my name is Odds, and we're going to be discussing the books that I have read so far in 2022. I'm sorry that this is a little off kilter. I'm trying to fix it, but it's not going my way. If you're new here today, I would love for you to subscribe. I do 2 videos a week, beauty vlogs, Marvel, DC. There's something on this channel for everyone, so be sure to stay tuned for that. And if you like this video while you're watching, make sure to give it a big old thumbs up, and we're going to go ahead and get started. The first book I'm going to talk about is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Now, this is by the same author who wrote Daisy Jones and the Six. I actually prefer Daisy Jones and the Six to this book, which is shocking considering the fact that I'm a big old lesbian. And this has a lesbian character and a bisexual character as the leads in this story. Leads, main characters. I have to realize that this is a book, not a film, although they are adapting this into a Netflix film, which I know has a lot of people up in arms about the quality of how that's going to go down. But that is happening. This book is not your typical romance novel. It's broken into sections for each husband, and it goes in depth with her relationships, the reasoning for them, the lead up to them, the demise of them. It's very interesting, and about her main true love, Celia St. James. Spoiler alert if you've managed to get past all the spoilers. But yes, this is a beautiful book. I do prefer Daisy Jones and the Six from an author standpoint, so just to keep in mind, but I think this is definitely worth a read, and it's really good to have some queer sapphic books in general. I can't put them there. I read 2 of the 4 Jane Austen books that are in here. So I read Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice. What I love about classic literature, and I always say this, is that it'll be going completely fine and dandy and then something crazy will happen out of nowhere. That definitely happens in these 2 books. I haven't read the other 2, which are Persuasion and Emma. Those are going to be also on my list for, if not this year, then next year. But they're a little bit of a hassle to get through, just because reading classic literature, you can't really zone out when doing so. You have to stay completely checked in. So in order to stay completely checked in while reading at night, it took a while. Also, the print on this is tiny. Like, it's really small. It's a very big hardcover book. If I probably, looking back on it, would have gotten individual editions of these books. I would have preferred that to this big old collection that I have here, but I've had this for a few years and just never read it. So finally getting around to doing that. I preferred Pride and Prejudice, and I did watch the movie adaptations. Yes, I love them, but I have to say the book is better in both cases for Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice. Next book is The Thursday Murder Club. This is written apparently by a British celebrity. Don't know who Richard Osman is. Should I know who Richard Osman is? That is the question. But I picked this up on one of those, like, tables that you'll have at Books A Million or Barnes & Noble. I think I picked this up at Books A Million, though. And I was just looking at it, and I thought I liked the cover with the, like, fox on it. And I thought the cover looked interesting. So I judged the book by its cover, and I really enjoyed this. This is about a group of people in a retirement home, so an elderly group, all get together and solve murders, and then they get a real, they solve like closed cases since one of them used to be a police officer or detective, but then they get an actual murder that happens kind of within their vicinity, and then they decide that they're going to help solve that one. So really great. The characters are really well written, and I really, really enjoyed this. This is one of my favorites that I've read so far. I have another Lovecraft collection. I read the Dunwich Horror and a collection of those other H.P. Lovecraft ones. Those were definitely more the like alien-based horror. Now Cthulhu, there's still a lot of alien-based horror in this as well, like supernatural alien-based horror, but there are more supernatural stories in this one as well. I really liked Re-animator, and a lot of people's favorites from this is The Rats in the Walls. Yes, the use of the N-word is very prevalent in Lovecraft writing. Even when it's not there, you get a big sense of racism just seeping through, so I didn't love it for that aspect. I understand it was written at a different time, but you can maybe understand it a little bit more when it's in like Huckleberry Finn versus when it's in something like this. So that's something to keep in mind. I think some of these stories are worth reading. Like I would say Re-animator is worth reading. And the good thing about Lovecraft is all of this stuff is in public domain, so if you want to use it for any of your stories, you absolutely can, which is great. That's why there is a Re-animator film based on this very short story, which I'd be interested to watch. So yeah, it's just an FYI, this is all in public domain, so writers, do with that as you will. Keeping up the horror genre, I read both of these, Fear Street Super Thriller, these 2 books in one, so this is Party Games and Don't Stay Up Late. Now, I thought when I bought this, and it has the little Netflix symbol on it, that this was going to be more similar to the book series, or this was going to be more similar to the film trilogy that's on Netflix. It is nothing alike. The only thing that is similar is that they take place on Fear Street. So this is a whole series. This is a whole series of books that R.L. Stine, who wrote Goosebumps, wrote. It's more for like a teenage audience. I think they were okay. They're nothing to write home about, but if you're a teenager looking for like a introduction to horror, I think this is a really good option for you. I prefer some of the other horror stuff that I read that was more geared towards adults, like example, I read Pet Sematary last year, which is one of my favorite books. I think that was really well written. We're going to get to Stephen King in a second. But this is good for like a beginner level for horror. Let's go with Stephen King. This is actually the last book I read. It's not a horror book. It is The Shawshank Redemption, or it's Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption is the title of the book. I think The Shawshank Redemption's a much better title, and I see why they went with that for the film. Overall, I preferred the film to the book. Now, that doesn't happen very often, but you get the general gist of things if you just watch the movie. The book is very short. It is like 111 pages. So I wanted something short, and it still took me a week to read because I'm very slow at reading these days. But I wanted something short after readings, like taking me forever to finish Where the Crawdads Sing, which will be the last book I touch on. So overall, I like the movie better than the book. This is not my favorite Stephen King. I've read 3 Stephen King books now, so Pet Sematary, Carrie, and Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. So this is probably at the bottom, but he has a lot of good work, and I think this is still fine. It's a fine read, but it's not something to write home about. I think I've said that phrase twice now. The last book I'm going to mention, and I have an even 9. I wanted to make it to 10 before filming this video, but I just didn't have the time to do so, and I kept pushing this video back. So I'll talk about the book I'm going to be reading, and then I have a few others that I can list off. But this is Where the Crawdads Sing. Now, I know the author is very controversial. You can look it up. Her name is Delia Owens. Look it up because it's a crazy story, but I read this book before knowing any of that stuff, and it didn't change the fact that I thought this book was okay. I think this book is a little bit overhyped. I think there's some good elements of this. Like, it's written by a, she's not a marine biologist. She's like a, is it a zoologist where it's like the study of animals and critters? Like, I think she's a zoologist. So she really knew what she was talking about, and like to get into the character's head. She really could like put her knowledge of marsh life into this book about a girl who is this girl who lives in the marsh and is a marsh girl. There's a murder that is involved in this. She gets accused of murder in this. And it's also about her growing up. So there's that. She falls in love. She has this whole young adult experience, and all the while she gets accused of murder, and we deal with the trial and everything like that. So this book kind of is just all over the place for me. That's why I didn't love it. It goes back and forth between times being settings. So it'll flash forward from the present to the past pretty frequently. I don't love that structure. That's just not something I like in my writing. It's just personal preference there. But I know a lot of people really love this, and this is also being made into a movie that comes out in July, I believe. So I'll be interested to see that, to see the differences between the movie and the book. I didn't mention the Shawshank, or Rita Hayworth in the Shawshank Redemption is about a guy who breaks out of prison. If you didn't know that, I feel like everybody knows about Shawshank Redemption, but didn't mention that, but that is what happens in that book. So I kind of sped through these. I did not expect to do so, but I did. So let me know if you'd like some book reviews a little bit more frequently on this channel. I'll try to do them maybe like twice a year, once about halfway through, and then once at the end of the year when I'm wrapping things up. I did that last year where I talked about my top books then, so yeah, that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you all, and I will see you on Friday with a new video. Bye!